Hello, I'm John Hoffman, your host for this edition of Oskaloosa Today. It's so easy to take things for granted. For example, this glass of ice-cold drinking water. Living here in Oskaloosa means we have access to safe drinking water, a hot shower, and even a toilet. Those are things that 1.2 billion people living on Earth don't have. Next, you'll meet one Oskaloosa resident trying to help those in need of safe water. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Oskaloosa Today. Swim for him. Enjoy.
Well, we've got about 18 or 20 or so people coming tonight, which is pretty much average.
What began as a weekly meal for a few close friends in early 2011 evolved into Michael's Monday night meal. In 1 year's time, the number of guests grew, adding family, coworkers, friends of friends, and church members, all to enjoy a weekly home-cooked meal made by Michael Glesner.
Oh yeah. Free will donation, and after costs, and I use that money for my missions trips. So it actually helped to pay for the last one when I went to India.
A round-trip flight costing $1,800. Tonight, Michael is making a traditional Indian dish similar to the one he ate during his 3 weeks traveling around India while on a missionary trip for S.W.I.M. Founded in 2004, S.W.I.M is an acronym for Safe Water International Ministries, a nonprofit organization made up of Christians from various denominations and backgrounds that use a chlorine-producing unit to help purify water and share the word of the Bible. At 30 years old, Glesner is the youngest of 10 members on the S.W.I.M board. He joined in October of 2010 and has been using his culinary arts degree to raise money for S.W.I.M. But that's not all. He also works distributing and training those in need on how a CPU works.
CPU is a chlorine-producing unit. And that's kind of something that we have to kind of educate people a little bit about, because a lot of people think it's like a water filter that we make, and it doesn't actually filter the water. We're just making chlorine that people use to purify water. So it doesn't actually, the machine itself doesn't treat or do anything to the water other than to make chlorine to purify the water.
Here's a short CPU instructional video Michael produced with the help of one of his friends.
International Ministries CPU instructional video. Before we begin, make sure your kit has 2 5-ounce plastic bottles, 1 dropper bottle, a 1 tablespoon measuring cup, 1 CPU, and 1 chlorine test kit with a dropper. You will also need a 12-volt power source. This can be a 12-volt battery, a 12-volt power supply, or even a car battery. Finally, you will need to have salt. Begin by measuring 1 tablespoon of salt in the measuring cup. It is very important to have the right amount of salt with the right amount of water to get the correct concentration of chlorine. Add the salt to the 5-ounce bottle, then fill the bottle with water. Screw the cap on tightly and shake vigorously so that all the salt is dissolved in the water. Once the salt water is ready, connect the CPU to a 12-volt power source. Start by connecting the negative or black power cord to the negative electrode on the battery. Then connect the positive or red cord to the positive electrode on the battery. Once the unit is connected to a power source, place an empty 5-ounce bottle underneath the unit and pour the salt water into the top all at once. Notice how the solution bubbles. This lets you know that the unit is working properly. But be careful not to breathe the fumes that come from the top of the unit while it is working. Once all the solution has drained out of the bottom, put the empty bottle underneath and repeat this process 4 times to ensure that the proper amount of chlorine is pulled from the salt. And now the chlorine is ready to purify water. This 1 5-ounce bottle is enough to purify approximately 250 gallons of water. To purify the water, add 10 drops of chlorine for each gallon of water. After the water has been dosed with the chlorine, wait for 1 hour before drinking. This ensures that the chlorine has time to kill the bacteria in the water. This also allows time for the chlorine taste to dissipate from the water. For more information on the CPU or about S.W.I.M, please visit us on the web at www.swimforhim.info.
The demonstration was much like the one that Michael presented several times in India last November.
This is me speaking, doing our presentation at one of the pastor's seminar that we spoke at. And the seminar itself was kind of to train pastors more about the Bible, more about how to teach and preach the Bible. And so we had like a little hour-and-a-half block of time in their 3-day seminar that we gave our little CPU presentation. And then there was 50 pastors there, and we handed out 20 CPUs, and the guy that was kind of in charge of the seminar handpicked those guys. So now we have a CPU in each state in India. So the pastors that came from all over the country, and so he picked the ones so that we have one in each state.
In all, S.W.I.M has distributed 100 chlorine-producing units, with at least one unit in each of India's 28 states.
You're giving them something that they really need, that's, they're really going to help their lives out and, improve the quality of their life, and something they can use, every day and improve their health. And, just in the long term, then, if you're sick all the time, you can't work, you can't go to school, you can't learn, so kind of in the long term, it's going to have a, long-term impact too. So it's rewarding, but it's exhausting. So.
While in India, Michael spent most of his 3 weeks traveling from village to village and giving presentations with S.W.I.M founder Greg Stout.
We were going to 2 or 3 different villages each day, and it's not like here where you go to Pella, it's 20 miles away, it's 20-minute drive or so. There it's, you're going down these roads that you wouldn't hardly ride your bike down, let alone drive down in a car. And it's dusty, and you're bouncing around these little cars, and you're stopping for horses and cows, and and you're dodging people walking down the side of the road, and motorcycles, and people are passing. It's just, it's a wholly different experience. So, it really takes it out of you, when you spend a whole day in these cars, and then you have to stop and then get out and give these presentations, and it drains you quite a bit, at the end of each day. And then, you're not sleeping well because you've got jet lag, and but at the same time, it's really rewarding because you're helping these people out.
The chlorine-producing unit disinfects water, helps prevent illnesses, and saves countless lives, especially in children that are often more susceptible to water-related illness, like diarrhea.
Pretty cool. We got a letter just last week from a community that started using these, and after they started using them, they saw 0 incidences of diarrhea in their children, which had been a big problem for them.
That's S.W.I.M board member Earl Ratcliffe. He assembles and builds chlorine-producing units from his garage. Earl got involved with the organization through his late father. He helped S.W.I.M founder Greg Stout begin works with Nicaragua back in 2004.
This is the very first prototype that Greg made, and you can see it's really heavy. And so when he went to Nicaragua, he could only take probably one at a time. And this unit actually produced chlorine gas as opposed to liquid. And it was cranks, it was handmade out of PVC and plastic, and this is the part right here that my dad made, this wooden part right here. I'm sure Dad's very happy to be looking down from heaven now, he and Mom both, to see the things that, not just me, but the things that S.W.I.M are doing, and Greg and other folks like us.
Today, one child dies every 20 seconds from a water-related disease.
This is a pretty common sight in India, people walking to and from with either laundry on their heads or jugs of water or something like that. So wherever they have to get their water, they have to walk there with it and walk back with it. So it makes you appreciate your water faucet quite a bit.
Oskaloosa Water takes quite a different journey to get to your tap. Oskaloosa Water Department General Manager Chad Kuhn gave me a tour of the water treatment plant, where the water is first pumped from underground aquifers. Then the softening process begins when the water is mixed with a lime slurry, mixed again with surface water, then enters into a settling tank and sent through a series of filters. Next, chlorine is added to disinfect.
That's something that is just at or over 100 years old, where they started using chlorine to disinfect. And as soon as they were able to do that, they cut down on cholera and typhoid and a bunch of the different diseases that were running rampant at some points. That chlorine was able to disinfect water for us. And it's not something it's you know, there are still organisms in the water. I'm not going to say that it's a sterile water. We don't sterilize the water, we disinfect it. So what we want to do is kill the disease-producing bacteria, pathogens. And that's something with that S.W.I.M, that's what they're doing. When they're producing chlorine and putting that with that water, it's killing those disease-producing organisms.
Fluoride is also added to Oskaloosa water to help prevent tooth decay, and then high-pressure pumps send the water several miles into town. The amount of water sent to town is shocking by comparison.
We have a brochure for S.W.I.M that we hand out, and one of the statistics on there is, you know, we use more water in one flush of our toilet than most people in third world countries use in an entire day of washing, cooking, cleaning, you know, just everything. Just that one flush of the toilet uses, you know, more water than they would use in a whole day. So it really makes you think, you know, really makes you appreciate what we have here, and you know, you try to kind of adjust your life to kind of revolve around that, but you know, it's tough when, you know, it's like it's so easy, just, you know, it's just readily available, and you don't think about it, you know, you almost take it for granted every day. So
Kuhn says that the industry standard is 100 gallons of water per person per day. So calculate in that Oskaloosa Water Treatment Plant sends water to the 12,000 combined residents of Oskaloosa and Beacon, as well as the city's industries.
As far as storage, we're looking at 2 million gallons. And on any given day, this time of year, typically we're running 1.2 to 1.4 million gallons. Last fall, when it was really dry, we did have we had at least one, if not 2 days, where we were over 2 million gallons.
The department is capable of producing more water to keep up with demand, but that's something that third world countries are not able to do, and something that Michael has seen firsthand.
in India, that was pretty common. I mean, that was especially out in the villages where there wasn't running water as much. A lot of villages that do have running water, what we found is there'd be a little spigot that kind of like have little or like a line of water that would have little spigots every, you know, maybe 20 feet, and they would run the water for like 2 hours twice a week, and so everybody had to come get all the water they needed for the next couple days at that time. So as soon as that water came out of there, everybody in the community would come, and they'd have carts full of water jugs, or there'd just be water jugs everywhere, and people would be filling them up because that's all the water they're going to get for 2, maybe even 3 days.
Even the Ganges River, considered the holy river stretching more than 1,500 miles, struggles to provide a safe source of drinking water to the people of India. Its waters are severely polluted. This is footage from a recent documentary titled Go Ganges, where 2 travel documentarians, J.J. Kelly and Josh Thomas, attempt to travel the entire length of the river.
Namaste.
It's probably one of the few rivers in the world where if you see floating human corpses, you don't have to call the police. It looks beautiful. I wouldn't drink it. We're trying not to splash ourselves on it. But I still absolutely adore this river, really because it's considered a goddess.
Pollution in the water can lead to life-threatening illnesses like cholera, diarrhea, and typhoid. Kelly and Thomas were both physically affected by the polluted water while making this documentary.
I don't understand how millions of Hindus can come to the Ganga and have all their sins removed forever, but I am incapable of any of that, and the only thing I've gotten so far is this rash. And it burns and it itches, and I just want to scratch it, but I know it'll get worse.
We're going to go for some garam masala. All right, now we're going to add our tamarind paste. Well, in India, they don't typically use toilet paper. They use a pot of water, and usually you only eat with your right hand because you use your left hand to wash yourself after you're done using the bathroom. So I'll be instructing everybody that they can only use their right hand, and see if anybody can accomplish that, because it's trickier than it sounds. Trying to use one hand to like break up the pieces of bread and use that. And
it's been a while since I've eaten with my fingers. The only thing is, it's just a little messy to eat this way, but it's very good.
What a good show!
It's just to get it pasty, maybe, so you can get a hold of it with the rice.
Typical in many places in the world, India especially, a lot of kind of less developed countries, they'll just use their hands because it's your God-given utensil.
So here's what Michael's serving up.
Got
chicken masala. We've got aloo gobi, which is cauliflower and potatoes. We got sweet and sour chickpeas. Masala rajma, which is a curried kidney beans. We've got basmati rice. And for dessert, we're gonna do gulab jamun, which is kind of like a donut hole soaked in rose petal water simple syrup. Really delicious.
While all the guests got a chance to enjoy an Indian meal, most, if not all, will never get a chance to visit India. So I asked Michael to describe some of the things that his eyes have seen.
You just can't even fathom. I mean, no picture can describe it. You know, I mean, words can't describe. You know, just to see I mean, it's hard to imagine that in this day and age, you know, the 21st century, where we're at here in the United States, that people still live like that. I mean, it's literally 100 years behind. I mean, if you imagine pioneer times back here, people on covered wagons, I mean, that's the same kind of conditions that they're living in, you know, every day. And it's just hard to fathom that in such a, you know, modernized, you know, culture that we live in, that it can be so far, you know, so far removed from that. It really makes you appreciate what we have here a lot more, you know.
But this CPU device is helping to bring relief to those in serious need, and hundreds of these chlorine-producing units are built just north of Oskaloosa. Last year, Earl Ratcliffe assembled about 300 of the new CPU units from his garage to be sent around the world.
Well, over the past 10 years, we've had a couple different models of our chlorine-producing unit. This is one of our early models, and then this is our most recent one prior to this year. In this case, we had is made out of common PVC pipe that we would buy out of a plumbing store, and it was made up of 20 different pieces. Took about an hour and a half to assemble. We sold them for $150. This year we started doing injection molding of the same design, so we are down now to 6 parts, about 10 minutes of assembly, and we're able now to sell them to other missions for $40.
A cost typically covered by donations.
So our chlorine producing units are just a basic electrolysis process. We have 2 electrodes out of titanium, and one of them is coated. And so when we put them together, we're able to put water and salt together, attach it to 12-volt electricity. If they have electricity, we use a power supply that comes from a computer. Or if they don't have any electricity, we use a 12-volt battery, and we'll sometimes supply a solar panel to keep that battery charged. So we have our 2 electrodes together like this. We put our base on. It has a drain hole in it in which the water drains out. And then we put our top funnel on. And so this is the assembled unit ready to produce chlorine. We use just a waterproof cement to hold this together so that it doesn't leak.
A unit like this is adequate for a community of 350 to 500 people, but S.W.I.M is thinking bigger.
We now have a new generation of a chlorine-producing unit that will produce chlorine for up to 10,000 people in a city in Nicaragua, for instance.
This device is already installed and working in some places around the world, like Nicaragua, and is nicknamed the Snake.
This is one of our continuous flow chlorine-producing units. It's ready to be shipped off to Nicaragua. We have a series of 3 electrodes, so we inject our salt brine here, feeds through, and it becomes chlorine as it comes out the other end. And then we inject that chlorine directly into the city water supply.
So from right here in the south central part of Iowa, chlorine-producing units have been sent to Haiti, Nicaragua, India, and more than 20 other countries around the world, all as part of Safe Water International Ministries' works to help with safe drinking water and to share the word of the Bible. Before traveling to India, Michael has been to Nicaragua on 3 separate mission trips with S.W.I.M.
I think probably the biggest impact was that first trip to Nicaragua, just to see the conditions that people live in down there. This is a kind of I would say a typical shower in Nicaragua. Basically just a tarped off, you know, side of the house, and there'd just be like a spigot sticking over, and you know, it wasn't heated in any way, so you're taking a cold shower, and usually they'd kind of like maybe fill up a bucket too and kind of use that. But and you also, you know, the privacy wasn't necessarily a lot of privacy either. So
Michael also got to experience how to use a common Nicaraguan stove.
And this is actually how they cook. They use sticks, and kind of the way it works is, you know, if you want more heat, you put more sticks in there, and then if you want to turn down your heat, you kind of pull a few of them out. But this is a pretty typical Nicaraguan style, like stovetop, if you will.
While in Nicaragua, Michael helped set up a feeding center for a Christian school and also taught some cooking classes.
So I taught them how to make cinnamon rolls, and I taught them how to make no-bake cookies and a bunch of other things. It's not something they're just going to go home and make for their family. It's going to be something they can use as a business and make money and have income, because that's a huge problem. That's part of the reason why the school is struggling, is because they take in all these kids from families that can't afford to go to like the public school, and so this is kind of a way to not only bring the family income but then help the school as well.
With little income, it makes it even harder for some Nicaraguan families to put food on the table or to even pay for schooling. It's often charities and donations that pick up the bill.
It's kind of hard to kind of run the school. They're always kind of hurting for funds, and they got to pay teachers, you know, they got to buy the food, they got to pay the cook, you know, and they're pretty much completely run on donations from pretty much here in Iowa is pretty much all their support in this area. So they're pretty dependent on that right now. But so, you know, they're always kind of a need, but they've been making it. They've been pushing through. So.
Even in tough times, the kids enjoy the simple things, like creating an animal out of mud, floating a paper boat down the road when it rains, and something as simple as having their picture taken.
And I actually experienced this in India as well, where when you take pictures of the kids, you know, you have your little digital camera and the picture pops up on the screen, and as soon as you take their picture, they all kind of rush up and they want to see it right away, because they don't hardly ever see a picture of themselves. You know, it's not like here in America, we have like school photos, so you know, every year you have a photo. Well, they don't have things like that. So as soon as you take their picture, they all rush up on you and they want to take a look at it. And it was kind of cool. Like I said, it happened in Nicaragua, but then same thing in India. It was the same kind of mentality. They'd rush up and want to see their picture as soon as you took it. So
Michael was able to snap a lot of photos on his mission trips and see parts of the world that are far removed from the United States. He shares one special moment when he saw a coloring book in Nicaragua.
On this trip, we went to this church, and they were having like it was almost like a vacation Bible school at the time, and so all the kids were kind of sitting around coloring, and I went over and looked, and I realized that was my dad's coloring book. So that was a pretty special moment, you know, to see that, and it wasn't planned, and it wasn't planned that way. I mean, but it was kind of cool to see. You know, it's like, wow, here's this coloring book that my dad drew 10 years ago. They're using it now. It was like Bible stories, like Noah's Ark and, you know, Garden of Eden and things like that. And so it was different, like Bible story kind of themed coloring book.
Most parents would be a little nervous knowing their son would be going on mission trips into third world countries, but Michael's parents have faith that he'll be okay.
You know, as Christian parents too, we also trust him over to God, that God would take care of him, look after him, and so that was comforting for us to think about that and pray for him, and kind of took the edge off.
Right.
When he'd go to Nicaragua, there were several people that we knew had been there before, and you had been there, so that didn't seem quite so scary. But India was a stretch, you know, as far as safety and, you know, being gone 3 weeks, and I was more nervous about that one.
Michael plans on taking a little break from his missionary travels, but he'll still continue hosting Michael Monday night meals that have raised nearly $7,000 in the past year. He'll also continue playing bass in a local praise band, and no surprise, he'll be holding down a job as a chef for developing great relationships at Strawtown Inn in Pella, Iowa. His eyes are next set on Africa, where his family has donated a small home.
Yeah, we purchased a home for orphans at Dr. Blessman's Medical Ministries in South Africa, just outside of Johannesburg. He owns a game farm which supports the orphanage, and they're building a complex there too to feed and house AIDS orphans. And part of that is that these are these small houses for families and for orphans.
I imagine in the next, maybe after a year or so, I'll be ready to jump back in and take another trip. I've thought about going to South Africa. I have some missionary friends there that have a that live over there in South Africa, and my parents have gone to visit them over there, and I actually donated to build a house, my parents and I did, and so it'd be kind of cool to go see the people that live in that house, you know. And I imagine I'll probably go back to India and kind of check up and see how people are using the CPU and see how it's impacting people's lives and things like that. So.
Living in Oskaloosa makes it easy to enjoy a glass of water. Unfortunately, as you've just seen, that's not quite the case around the world. If you'd like to donate to S.W.I.M's cause or even attend one of Michael's Monday night meals, you can. I'll give you that information coming up in the credits. I'm John Hoffman, and thank you for watching this edition of Oskaloosa Today, S.W.I.M for Him.
I think it went really well. I think everybody enjoyed it, tried a few new things, you know, just stretch everybody a little bit. But as you can see, the work's not done yet. We still got dishes to do and cleaning up to do, so I usually only get so far tonight and then continue it on next couple days.